Hello guys, welcome back to another video on this channel. My name is Greta, for those of you that are just coming here for the first time, and I'm pleased to have you here. Like the title already states, how I got a job before I landed in Canada as a permanent resident. When I got my confirmation of permanent residence email and I got my passport request, I sent my passport, and while I was waiting for my passport, I just dived right into preparation, especially job search. So guys, I'll be sharing 7 things I did, or 7 tips I think worked for me. They are not cast in stone, it's just things I did that I want to just share with you guys. So the first one I did was working on my resume to fit the Canadian standard. Now you know, like we have a CV in Nigeria, CV style in Nigeria. In Canada is totally different. There are some things that are not even supposed to be there. So before I got, for those of you who have watched previous videos, you know, I talked about having an employment counselor, going through the pre-arrival services. Before I got the employment counselor, I just wanted to start applying to jobs. So what I did was I reached out to a friend who had gone through that stage, and she shared her CV with me, which I used to update to work on mine. You can Google Canadian CV styles and you would get a lot of templates. These are the things that I did to just make up my CV since I wasn't already in Canada. Usually they will require you to have an address and postal code, and I didn't have that, right? I had not even gotten an accommodation, and I didn't have a friend whose address I could use like some other people would do. So what I did was I just put Calgary, Alberta. Of course, I had the intention. My initial intention was to settle in Calgary. I just put Calgary, Alberta. Then I put all the details. No postal code because I didn't have a postal code. I just put Calgary, Alberta. And now I also needed a number. Thankfully, one can get a virtual Canadian number. So that was what I did. There are some apps that you can use. There is Dingtone, there is Fongo. So for me, I used Fongo. I only paid once during the initial application stage. For Dingtone, I think you would have to pay monthly. So I registered, I got a number, and I added it to my CV. Now there's this other thing I added to my CV. I got a tip from a fellow YouTuber. I stumbled on her video while I was in this process working on my CV, and in that video, I'll be linking the video in my description box. She talked about how she included her visa status in her resume, and she thinks that helped her. I also did that. Under where you have your address and phone number, I just added visa status permanent resident. However, when I got an employment counselor later on, before I also landed, she went through my resume and she talked about how she didn't think it was necessary, but for me, I still left it. When I landed, I attended a webinar, and one of the speakers talking about how to position yourself for job opportunities talked about that same thing. That it was good for a new immigrant to include that in the CV, visa status permanent resident, because most employers here, if not all, first they would call you via phone. For some of them, they would call you just to have a phone interview with you before they go ahead to schedule the real interview, and they would always ask you, what's your visa status? Are you a are you a citizen or a permanent resident? So tip number 2 would be tailoring your CV to meet the job description of each job advert you see. You know, in Nigeria, most times we'll just take one CV and throw it to as many applications, which is not advised even in Nigeria. So I would look at the job description of any job advert I see and tailor my CV to meet that job advert. Of course, I have the things that are needed, but you know, in some job adverts, they would use keywords. So I will take keywords from that job advert and include it in my CV, so that when their automated selection system is going through I don't know what they call that thing now, is going through resumes, mine will stand a chance, even if it's 80% or 90% chance to move on to the next stage. Now, guys, a backstory. In Nigeria, I worked in the like the special education needs industry, and that was what I wanted to pursue here. I had certifications to back that up too, so that was those were jobs I focused on jobs in that industry. Tip number 3, guys, that will be applying to jobs both on career site and also on the company's website. I also got this tip from Bemi's video. She talked about how maybe if you see a job interview advert on indeed.ca, not just indeed.ca, that's the one for Canada. You see a job advert on indeed.ca, or you see on LinkedIn or Glassdoor, you would you follow the link to apply, and you would also go to the company's website. She would also go to the company's website rather to apply, and that I took that tip from her too. So after, if I apply on Indeed or wherever I see the job, I first saw the job advert, I would also go to the company's website, search for that same job position, and apply on the company's website. The tip number 4 would be apply to as many jobs as possible and to targeted provinces. For me, that's if you do not mind settling in any province that you have as part of your targeted provinces. For me, I just wanted to settle in Alberta, and that was where I was looking at jobs. Calgary, which was my first my initial city I wanted to settle in. I was only applying to jobs in Calgary. I just kept on applying to as many as I could find, and it was the only job. One of those days, I think I had a link to apply to a job in Edmonton. I just pushed it, relegated it to the background, and one day I just said, okay, why not just try this also? I sent in that application, and that was how I got called. I got scheduled for an interview, and then I got the job after the interview. Yay, glory be to God. Tip number 5, guys, would be tell them your current location. Now, I did not include my current location in the CV, but when the interview was on, I told them that okay, I was currently in Nigeria and I was looking at coming on this particular date because I already had a date in mind, and they were like, oh, okay, we didn't know this, but they do not think that's going to be a problem and whatnot. I think because the date was already closed and the grace of God also helped, so they said it was not going to be a problem. Even I couldn't travel on that date, I moved it a week for that, and I reached out to them to say, okay, I will not be coming on the initial date I stated. Something came up and I've moved my travel date, and they said there was no problem. Guys, another thing I'll quickly want to say is, of course, if you get by God's grace, you'll get an interview, you're being given an offer. Of course, you would want to consider an earlier date if your date is still way ahead. So now we go to tip number 5, which would be confident to negotiate your pay, because most times I would think from my experience that they know that you are a new immigrant coming to Canada, and so they might want to probably just cut down on the amounts that they initially had to offer, because oh, she's a new person or he's a new person and he might just want to accept anything, and then you take it because, oh, okay, let me just take it to have a foot in the door, which is very important. But of course, you should be able to say, okay, because for me, I saw when I was applying, I saw a particular range of amounts, and when by the time they gave me an offer, they even had to up it to by $2 extra because they felt I had the experience. Now, after when the offer had been given, there were 2 roles I would be performing in this particular job. So one job, 2 roles, which was almost like all encompassing the same thing. So when the offer came, one of them had the original amount that we had talked about, the other one had a reduced amount. So I had to reach out to them that, okay, I thought this was supposed to both roles were supposed to have the same amount, and they went ahead to explain how it wasn't possible and all of that, but they were going to see what can be done. And I think the following day I got another offer letter with both roles having the same pay rates now. So I would say be confident to negotiate your pay. Tip number 6 will be send out as many applications as possible. Just give yourself that head start. You might not get a job before landing like I did, or like few other people have done, or you might get one, but just knowing that, okay, you have already started this process, and you know what should be done. Probably you might even get an interview, and that interview will be like a learning phase, a stepping point for other interviews that would come. Just apply as much as possible. Now guys, tip number 7 being make use of pre-arrival services. If you're a permanent resident, if you're coming to Canada as a permanent resident, I cannot overemphasize this. Make use of the pre-arrival services that would be given by the IRCC. Guys, it is fully sponsored. Usually when you get your passport request, you see the email, you see the link to register for pre-arrival services in that email. Guys, utilize it. I cannot emphasize the importance of the courses, of taking the courses. It was one of the courses I took on workplace and the Canadian workplace and negotiation, that I learned, or I had that confidence to negotiate, further negotiate the pay rate for the second role that was in the offer. So guys, make use of the pre-arrival services. I learned interview tips. I learned what to expect during an interview, because of course I've never lived in Canada and I didn't have any experience, but that alone, the pre-arrival courses, there are lots of courses depending on which one you use. I use SOPA, SOPA, I don't know the full meaning, I'll put it here, and that really helped me. The courses I took, having meetings with my employment counselor was really beneficial for me. Now the bonus point will be also try to use cover letters. Guys, in addition to the bonus point, I would say do not forget the place of prayer for those of you who are believers. Commit every application you send into God's hands. And so guys, until I see you the next time, please do not forget to subscribe to my channel so that you get updated when I post new videos, and also turn on the post notification bell. Also, please like this video if it was worth your while. Until the next time, bye bye.